I just wanted to say one thing before I go, and it's pertaining to Friday, and it's pertaining to Chael Sonnen, who, of course, is my partner here on ESPN Plus, Ariel and the Bad Guy. We do the show. We've been doing the show for a year, and so it was kind of, I don't even know what the word is to describe it. It was emotional to see him retire. I kind of had a feeling that he was going to walk away if he didn't win. That was the last fight on his Bellator contract. And I know he's 42, and we sort of talked about the end and the promise that he made to his dad. I believe that he fulfilled that promise. I consider him a former WEC light heavyweight champion. I know Palafilio missed weight when they fought at, I think, WEC 36 back in the day, but I've always thought that that thing is weird. That rule is weird. If the champion misses weight, why can't the guy who actually did his job and made the weight, why can't he fight for the belt? Semantics, I know, but in my opinion, he's a former WEC light heavyweight champion and not light heavyweight, middleweight champion, I should say. And I know he feels like he never got that belt. He never got that moment with the belt wrapped around his waist. But, I love the fact that Palafilio gave him the title and sort of honored his end of the deal. And I think it's great that, he did that. And I hope that Chael doesn't feel like he didn't hold up his end of the deal, because he's had a phenomenal career. He has made an impact on this sport. And I know his legacy is complicated, and you cannot talk about his legacy without talking about the drug test failures. And guess what? He'd be the first one to talk about them. He always did it in the most honest way possible. And I actually thought it was fitting that TJ Dillashaw's first interview on Friday was with Chael, because he tested positive for EPO and Chael tested positive for EPO. And I think TJ is actually handling this very trying time in the most honorable way possible. And I know that's kind of funny because we're talking about something that isn't very honorable. When you're caught cheating, it's not a great time. It's a black mark on your career, but I think he's owning up to it. And Chael always owned up to it. And so that is part of the legacy. That is part of the story. But if you're just focusing on that, I think you're missing the entire story. I remember talking to Chael on this show, and I know it was a different iteration of the show, but UFC 104, right before he fought Yushin Okami, he came on the show. We were doing it from AOL, and he was talking about how he was frustrated, how Okami wasn't holding up his end of the bargain, how he has to promote this fight on his own. And at the time, the prelims were not even televised. There was 1 hour prelim on Spike and then 5 fights on pay-per-view. He was on the untelevised prelims, UFC 104 at Staples Center. And I believe at the time, Yushin Okami was the number 2 ranked middleweight in the world. That's how little interest there was in this fight. And Chael came out of I didn't expect any of that from him. I didn't expect to come out. And that's when I believe Chael P. Sonnen was born. And I told him this, and I've said this to him many times. I think even the other time, the second to last time he was in studio, and he's never refuted it. So I'm going to carry that one on my own. I'm gonna hold that up like it's my own victory. And once he did that, once he had that revelation that, hey, if I talk a little bit, I get some attention, good things are going to happen to me. Because at the time, he was in the sport for 8-9 years. Beats Okami, and I'll never forget, he goes into Las Vegas, UFC 109. Everyone thought Nate Marquardt was going to beat him, and he went in there like a Tasmanian devil. His interviews prior to that fight were amazing, and then he beat Nate Marquardt. And then I did that post-fight interview with him, and he's bleeding in the interview, and he talked about how when he goes into the locker room, he tells Anderson Silva what song that he wants played. Now he's the boss. He's the new sheriff in town. And it was amazing to see this man just transform in front of our eyes. And then he does the Q&A at the WC event, and he denies that his controversial Twitter account was his own. And this was all just brand new, fresh, entertaining stuff. And he was the first guy to poke Anderson Silva. He was the first guy to actually look at him and point his finger in his chest and say, no, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not intimidated by you. And of course, we remember UFC 117. And I've said numerous times that his performance in the pre-fight press conference was one of the finest pieces of pre-fight promotional theater that I've ever seen. If you have never seen that press conference with him sitting there next to Thiago Alves and the stuff that he was saying and how he had the entire room laughing, and the entire room eating out of his hand. Do yourself a favor after this and go watch it. And of course, we know how that fight ended up. It was heartbreaking to watch. He was 3 minutes away from beating Anderson Silva. And then we know what happened afterwards with the suspension, with the time off. And I remember talking to him in Las Vegas almost a year later in that black and white interview where I said, "It's good to see you, Chael." And he said, "It's good to be seen." And he talked about feeding, the bus a carrot, the Nogueira brothers doing that. And he talked about the pride fights being fixed and all the great stuff about, his future opponents. He was planting seeds all over the place. Vanderlei Silva and Vitor Belfort, all those guys. We had never seen anything like this before. And so, and he always backed it up, and he always fought the tough guys, and he never said no, to a fight. And he always came so close. And I remember him talking about getting the silver medal and always, being the bridesmaid. But in my opinion, if you're going to focus on that, if you're just going to focus on the steroid stuff, you're missing the entire picture of what this man did. He brought MMA to a different level. He brought it to a new height. He brought it in front of the masses. He did a great job of carrying the sports flag at ESPN long before I came. He was the only one, essentially. It was him. It was a little bit of Gilbert Melendez. There was a period there post MMA Live where it was just the Chael Sonnen show. They called upon him to do a 2-minute hit, and he was carrying that flag. And so I think we owe a lot to Chael. And I'm not trying to brush aside the controversial stuff. He has had controversial stuff happen in his career, his own doing. But I think it's also proper to honor that guy and to give him the credit and the respect that he deserves, because he's one of the important figures in this sport. And now he can focus on life after fighting. Now he can focus on the broadcasting, which he's one of the best, if not the best, at doing: analysis, opinions, breakdowns, things like that. And here we are, just 3 days away from the 1-year anniversary of the first episode of Ariel and the Bad Guy, which a lot of people who work on this show work on that show as well. And what a ride it's been. It started off maybe a little rocky at first, but I look forward to doing that show with him every Wednesday. And I truly miss him when he's not at the fights. When I'm there, he's not there. Maybe we won't have that as much these days because, he's no longer in fight camps anymore. That's usually when he missed them. And it just feels a whole lot more comfortable. It feels a lot more fuller with him around. He's a great partner. He's a great friend. He's a very loyal friend, and he's often had my back, and I'd like to think I've had his as well. And so I was happy that I got to be there. I don't get to go to a lot of Bellator shows, but I was happy I was able to be there. I was happy his family was there, his kids were there, his wife was there, his mom was there. It was a great scene despite the loss. He got to go out on his own terms. He got to put the gloves down. He got to walk away. He got to say goodbye, and then we'll see him on Saturday on the Bellator broadcast, and I believe next week on the show, because he's taking this week off, and rightfully so. So thank you very much for all the great memories, Chael. Thanks for all the great interviews. I'm glad we'll be able to keep on talking, but this certainly is the end of a chapter, and in my opinion, the end of one of the great chapters in mixed martial arts history.